Okay, so here is the dried collage background that we created, or I created last week, showing you using all the different papers that you have around the house and just whatever you have. I created it in my art journal, but I also suggested that you could create it actually on a piece of cardboard, which I created one here. As you can see, you can work on whatever you have, and I think it's kind of fun because it just takes the pressure off. You just apply all the papers here, and then you still will end up with a really cool piece of art when you're finished with it. Or if you are just practicing, it really doesn't matter, because when you're done with this, it is just a piece of cardboard, or it can be a cool piece, whatever you'd like. I also created one on a canvas. This is a little bit bigger canvas. I don't know if you can see it real clearly, but just using lots of different papers. And this is something that I have a lot of texture down, and I can create on top of that. So as you can see, just use what you have. Don't worry about getting anything special when you're just getting started. So let's see what we can do to, turn this kind of hodgepodge into something that is kind of cool. And basically the texture is really amazing with all these different pieces that we have on here. So once we get some paint on, I think you'll be able to see where we're going. Now, as I'm doing this, at times I'm going to speed it up so that you don't have to, once I'm not explaining, I think you get the gist of it as I'm just applying paint. And when I'm not explaining, I will put the video into fast forward mode. So first off, we're going to start by using some colors that I've already chosen. And I'm just using craft paint for this. So you don't need anything expensive. You don't need to worry about buying any kind of art quality paint, because when you're creating your art journal just for yourself, it really doesn't matter. And I'm going to show you that you can, with just basic craft paint, make something just fine. So I'm going to use some shades of blue. I have just different brands from Michaels or Joann's, shades of blue and green. I do have, this is from Dick Blick. I'm going to use some greens and blues, and also a brown and a black and a white. Later on, I'm going to bring in, we're going to do a simple flower, a kind of a melon and a marigold color. So that's all we're going to need right now to get started. And I'm going to squirt out some paints, and what we're going to use to apply the paint is not a brush this time. I'm going to use a old credit card or a hotel key card, and a brayer, and also your fingers. You could use a paintbrush if that's what you want and you don't like to get messy, but I'm going to show you how we can just use these other tools to apply paint and to push it around and make it look pretty cool without having to have like a special art wedge, catalyst wedge, or some other fancy tool. So let's get started. One thing I do want to say before we get started, I'm going to create a kind of a horizon line, just to kind of give us a place. We're going to do a simple project just to get us started, something that there's no fail. I'm just going to create a horizon line, and then we're going to do some flowers, and it's going to be fairly simple. Okay, I'm sorry, but the my video shut off. So I had to finish it the rest of the way without explaining what was going on. So basically I painted this part, lower part green. I moved the horizon line down a little bit and finished up the top part. I also rubbed back some of the words and some of the things so that I could still see through to those. So now we're gonna get started by drawing in our flower stems, and we're going to keep this really simple, and I think that actually looks better. So you could use just a regular pencil. I also have a Stabilo pencil. You could use a marker, you could use a charcoal pencil, or you could just use a regular old pen, whatever you have on hand. So I'm going to use my charcoal pencil because I like that the best. So, and I'm just going to randomly do, I don't know, probably like 5. Odd numbers are better, I think. Maybe 7. We'll see. Let's just get going and see where it goes. So the next thing we're going to do is figure out how, actually, I think I'm going to add in a little bit of black along here just to kind of show us where our horizon line is. The next thing I want to do is talk about the flowers, the flower piece to this. And I'm going to show you some ideas for creating your flowers. So if you're a crafter and you have stamps on hand, you could, just stamp and color that in with paint or with a marker or whatever you have. So a stamp is a great option. And I also have a rubber stamp or foam stamps, which are kind of fun because you can use those with paint. And I have a leaf, which maybe we'll use as well. Another thing is if you're a crafter, you might have some different little flower pieces, which would be cute, or you might have some chipboard pieces, which would work. Even things that are not necessarily flower shaped would work. Let's see here. If you might have a flower punch, and I've already punched some out of book paper. I just took an old book, and punched out some flowers that way. So that's an option. You might have a stencil, a flower stencil, and that is another great option. Then you can use the different sizes there. Another thing you might have is scrapbooking paper, and this one has a flower design, and you could cut out the flowers and put those on wherever those seem to work. So there's a lot of different options for you. I think I'm going to use these book paper, flowers. I don't know if I have enough. I might need to punch another one. Let's see. I have one more person right here that I'm going to have to punch one more. So I'm going to punch that. Move these out of the way. Just giving you lots of different options. And here's our last one. I think I'm going to kind of have it on top of that. I like that. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of, the different flowers that you can use, and do whatever's easiest. You can even draw them in or paint them in. However, a lot of times I just do a little dot on the top. Typically, if I was doing this, I would just put a little dot, and that's kind of how I like my flowers. But for the sake of this, let's just make it simple. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to need to put those on with Mod Podge, and I think I'm going to wait to do that. I have an idea. I think maybe it would be fun to put on a few of these as leaves. So I'm going to get the green paint and just put a few leaves down. Let's see how that goes. Actually, I usually like using my finger better, so I'm going to try that rather than a paintbrush. And let's just add a few kind of random. That didn't. Okay, so I'm sorry about these videos, but obviously I am having some technical difficulties. I did use the stamp and put some leaves on. They're kind of subtle, so I might go back over those again. And I talked about wanting to add some words and what flowers reminded me of, which, you know, kind of went into, you know, beauty and growth and blooming and becoming and thriving and developing and all these kind of things. So I ultimately decided I wanted to add the word seek beauty. So I've already added seek in, and I'm going to add beauty, and I'll show you how I did that. I basically, you could do, I'm using a charcoal pencil, but I did talk about that you could use a Sharpie, a China pencil, a white marker. You could use black or you could use paint, and I'm going to go over it with paint, but I'm going to start by writing it with a pencil. So that way, when I go over it with paint, it, you know, it's just a little bit easier. So I'm going to just go ahead and jump right in. I think it'd be fun to add a word, just to add a little more interest, since it is a journal page, to add a little more word kind of relevant to the Seeking Beauty, to add some words to each of the flowers. And I was going to show you some ways, different ways that I go about finding words. Some I cut out of, you know, books. Some I cut out of magazines, words that I think are fun, or off of cards or different things, you know, that might be relevant. Here, I think I'm going to want some smaller ones. Here's a whole bunch of different words, and it's just fun to have a stash of words that you can add to journal pages or even cards or whatever you're doing. Another thing that's fun to use are these stickers. These come like in the, I think in the scrapbooking section of the, or in the sticker section of, you know, Joann's or Michael's. And these have just tons of really cool words that you can use. Another thing I like to do is go through an old dictionary and just go through and choose, you know, words and cut them out. This is really tiny, but sometimes the words up in the corner are a little bit bigger. And a lot of times I just use these pages as backgrounds too. The last thing I'd like to suggest is actually to write up a bunch of words in a Word document and then just print them out. So here I've written up a bunch of different words that I think would be fun, and I think I'm going to just go ahead and cut these out and use some of these words this time. I think that the size, I think, is going to be a better fit. Okay, so I've chosen my words and cut them out and attached them, or kind of laid them out on each flower. And you can choose any words you want and from any kind of source that works for you. So what I think I'm going to do now is, before I put Mod Podge those down, is I want to paint my stems green, kind of a green and brown maybe. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. go back in with my long, narrow, it's a number 20 liner brush, and just kind of go back over the white paint. And then after this, we'll be ready to go put the Mod Podge on, and we're almost done. Okay, I'm going to dry this and then we will apply the Mod Podge. Okay, so everything is dry and now we're just going to apply the Mod Podge. We're going to glue everything down. Now when I do a final layer of Mod Podge, I actually like to go over the entire thing so the whole piece has a similar look and feel to it. If I don't do that, then parts of it might be, even though this is a matte, it might have a little bit different sheen. So I just tend to go over the whole thing. Then it all kind of has a similar look to it. So I'm all finished with coating this. We're going to let it dry, and this typically takes about an hour or so. I might use my heat gun to it, and then when it's dry, I'll come back and show you how we're going to finish it up. All right, see you in a minute. Okay, I let this dry overnight because it was really wet in certain spots, and even with the glue, even with the heat gun, it was not really. It was still not really drying, so I thought I'd just leave it overnight and then show you how we're going to finish this up right now. I'm going to paint these flowers. I have a couple colors here. I'm going to paint them, and then we're going to just kind of add some shadowing with either a watercolor crayon or some markers, or possibly the charcoal pencil. We're just going to kind of go around those. I'm going to give you some different options. So I'm going to start painting. I'll probably put it in fast motion or fast forward, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how I'm going to do the shading. Okay, I think that is good for the flowers, just kind of simple. I think a couple colors are better than just one color. I think not perfect in terms of getting all the way coloring in the book paper that's underneath is good, but that is personal preference. So you could paint yours in meticulously, you could leave them as is, you can do whatever you want. So now I'm going to do a little bit of shading. And then I think we're going to be done. So I have a black and a brown, I have a gray, I have a black charcoal pencil, but I think I'm going to use my brown, which is a dark sepia Faber-Castell Pet Pen. And I'm just going to show you, I'm going to go around the edges, and then this ink kind of smudges nicely. It kind of gives it a little bit more like it's a part of it rather than just like a piece of paper laid on top. I think the only last thing I will do is I'm going to go around the edge with this marker and just feel like sometimes the edge with a little bit of darkness just kind of frames the whole picture. But otherwise, our art journal page is done, and I hope you guys had fun, and I hope you will try to do something, find some special words for yourself that have some meaning, and just do a simple, as you can see, this doesn't take any drawing, any real skills other than, painting some color on and, drawing some lines. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time.